Hello everyone, welcome back to MLS Moves. Please make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Before we get to the video, I'd like to thank you all for your support and remind you that we're doing a jersey giveaway when we hit 3,000 subscribers. 3,000 subscribers is our goal to reach by the end of this month, so make sure you subscribe, stay subscribed, follow me on Twitter at MLS Moves for the latest up-to-dates on the giveaway. Now, on to the video. The first game I want to break down is the Colorado Rapids and LAFC. Now, the Colorado Rapids, especially this offseason, I was very on the fence about some of the moves they made. Chris Armas is not a very good manager, in my opinion, or his previous records at stops at Toronto FC and the New York Red Bulls led me to believe that he would inevitably fail with the Colorado Rapids, which the jury's still out on what his success will be. But I have to say at this point, he's done very well, and he's got the Colorado Rapids at 7th place in the West at this moment. And also some of the signings that the Colorado Rapids made this offseason, I referenced as the All-American rejects, more specifically Sam Vines, Jordi Mihalovic, and Zach Steffen, because all three of these players were unable to have a successive stint or run in Europe when they moved from MLS the first time. But these players have shown to be pretty solid thus far, more specifically Mihalovic, who had his best game as a Colorado Rapid in this match. He had a brace, he looked creative, he looked fluid. He reminded me of the way he looked when he was playing under Wilfried Nancy at Montreal. He looked like his normal self once again, and he looked like he was worthy of the DP status in this match for the Colorado Rapids. And also Zach Steffen looked good. Zach Steffen looked like he stepped in the time machine. He looked like his former self when he played for the Columbus Crew from 2015 to 2019. And this is a good thing because at one point he was the clear-cut #1 goalkeeper for the U.S. men's national team. He came back to MLS this offseason to try to regain form, regain confidence, and try to win back his spot with the national team, which will be an uphill battle for the U.S. men's national team goalkeeper, as Matt Turner looks to have that locked down for the foreseeable future. But if Zach Steffen can get back to his pre-European form, there's a chance he might be able to get back in the mix for the national team goalkeeping spot. And this is a good thing for the Colorado Rapids to see them push for a playoff spot and return to the playoffs for the first time since the 2021 season. Now, as far as LAFC is consistently inconsistent. They show so much promise, and they show that they have spurts of success. Atuesta looked really good, obviously. Matty Bogusz looked good. Denny Bouanga looks good. But they're just a couple. This team is just missing several pieces, and you can just tell that there's some things they need to add in order to truly compete. Like I've mentioned before, this team is depleted with only 21 senior roster players right now. David Martinez came off the bench, looked very solid. Obviously, he got a second yellow card and ended up getting sent off. But you see the potential there in the 18-year-old Venezuelan winger. This team just is a few pieces away from truly competing. Obviously, there's the rumors, and I just recently did a video on Olivier Giroud joining LAFC this summer. Once they add all these pieces, I think they'll be fine. But the question is, where are they going to be by the time they are adding these players? Will they be too far gone in competing for the #1 spot in the West and the Supporters' Shield? It's to be determined. I think this team is still solid enough to compete and still a couple points away, but these reinforcements can't come in soon enough. Now, moving on to Inter Miami and New York City FC. Inter Miami was still missing key starters in the starting 11, like Messi, Nico Tomas Avalos, who was on the bench, and Federico Redondo was reported to have an LCL tear, which is going to hold him out for 8 weeks, and he's going to miss the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So they had Sergio Busquets playing center back, which was very puzzling. This team still looked pretty decent. I mean, Cello made his debut for Inter Miami at right back. He looked very solid. Luis Suarez scored a goal, continuing his hot streak and building on his resume for MVP of the 2024 season. Julian Gressel looked very slow and uncreative in his right-wing start. Obviously, kind of looking back to the way he looked in the preseason. Robert Taylor looked okay. Diego Gomez looked pretty solid. You know, this team is just another. I don't want to criticize them too hard because they were missing several pieces, but to get a point with all these starters missing is plausible. And I say that, you know, it's not a bad result for them. Now, as far as New York City FC, Nick Cushing is I just don't understand how he hasn't been fired yet. They didn't qualify for the playoffs in 2023. They spent a record amount for the club this offseason on player acquisitions, and they still cannot find any success on the field. They have one win through 6 matches this season. Their younger players like Ojeda or Mihajlovic or even Fernandez cannot seem to find any consistency on the field or playing time in general. This is not the standard that City Football Group has instilled for their clubs. And I just don't see how much longer this Nick Cushing project is going to last. Now, Matt Freese obviously had a very good game. He is the main reason this club did not get blown out on Saturday. He saved several goals. He was my player of the game, arguably the goalkeeper of the week as well. He showed some promise, but if New York City FC does not get certain things under control and get things figured out, this team is going to be in disarray. And I think it's inevitable that Cushing's going to be out. Why not go ahead and pull the Band-Aid off, restart it, search for a better manager? Because this team does have talent. They just need someone who can lead them in the right direction. And I'm just really disappointed. I expect more from a club that's owned by City Football Group. We all know that if this was Man City, which people always argue back with me and say New York City FC is not Man City, but they are owned by the same football group. So if they have one standard for one club, they should have it for all their clubs. So we'll see what happens. They just look very lackluster thus far. Now, Santi Rodriguez has looked pretty solid, but we'll see what happens. This team just continues to struggle. The last game I'm going to talk about is the LA Galaxy and the Seattle Sounders. This was an insane game, not because of the result on the field, but because of the conditions. It rained, I guess, pretty harshly leading up to this match, and the field looked so dangerous. I mean, puddles everywhere. The field was completely drenched. Some of the plays, and Audi, when he went for the ball out of bounds or before it went out of bounds, he slid completely and nearly rolled his ankle. I mean, players were slipping and sliding. Players were having to change their cleats in the first 20 or 30 minutes in the game. It was a total disaster. And the LA Galaxy were still able to find a way to win. This team is unbeaten still. Greg Vanney, in contention for Coach of the Year. They're looking very solid thus far. Paintsill looked pretty good as usual. Puig kind of had a more quiet game. I would say this is probably the worst game he's had this season, and it was still a decent performance. Joveljic tweaked something, so he started off the bench. Gabriel Peck got his first goal in his young MLS career, so he looked pretty solid. Defense looked pretty solid, didn't concede a goal. I just think that this team still has a lot of room to grow, which is scary, honestly. And they're a team to watch. They're probably the hottest team in the West at the moment. This is scary for the rest of the league. And now going on to the Seattle Sounders. The Seattle Sounders have yet to win a match this season, and it begs the question, is it time to move off of Brian Schmetzer? Yes, Brian Schmetzer has won 2 MLS Cups. Yes, he is the first MLS manager in modern history to win the CONCACAF Champions League, but at what point is it time to move off after he was the first manager in their history to not qualify for the playoffs? As things stand, they look like they're not going to qualify for the playoffs again this season. Their star acquisition this offseason, Pedro de la Vega, is hurt right now. Jordan Morris looks washed. Raul Ruidiaz has been washed. Albert Rusnak looks okay, but doesn't look worthy of a DP status. I mean, this team is in shambles, if you ask me. I mean, they need a complete rebuild. I think they need a roster rebuild. They need a managerial rebuild. It's just sad to see what the Sounders have become. It honestly reminds me of Toronto FC in the latter part of Greg Vanney's tenure, and then obviously when Bob Bradley took over. This team needs an identity change. They need a complete rebuild. This is not the Seattle Sounders we have grown accustomed to that was considered the gold standard of MLS in the last decade. It'll be interesting to see what happens, and it will be interesting to see if they do make a change, if they win a game in the near future. Now, a couple other scores to go over this weekend. Philadelphia Union beat Minnesota United 2-0. DC United won 1-0 over Montreal, which was their first loss of the season. Charlotte FC and FC Cincinnati ended in a draw 1-1. Sporting KC beat Red Hot Toronto FC, who is without Lorenzo Insigne due to injury for several weeks. The Red Bulls and Orlando City SC ended in a draw, also 1-1. Nashville SC and Columbus Crew was a crazy game. It was going back and forth. Anibal Godoy had a crazy bicycle kick, but that game ended in a 2-2 draw. Houston Dynamo got a win over the San Jose Earthquakes 2-1. Austin FC gets their first win since last season, beating FC Dallas 2-1. RSL, which is a sneaky hot team right now, honestly. I think they're currently ranked number 3, if I'm not mistaken, in the West. They're a sneaky hot team. You better watch out for them. They beat a struggling St. Louis City SC 3-1, which is another team that's not looking good thus far, looking like they're having a sophomore slump. And then Vancouver Whitecaps beat the Portland Timbers 3-2. I mean, that's another sneaky team. Just crazy how well they're playing and going under the radar. They're number 2 in the West right now. And then on Sunday, Atlanta United beat the Chicago Fire 3-0, and they are absolutely rolling right now. I mean, Giakoumakis looks like he's in prime position to win the MLS Golden Boot. And, you know, it looks like Atlanta United's back, and they're exciting to watch once again. So anyways, let me know in the comment section, what was your favorite match this past weekend? What are your takeaways? Is there a player that's sticking out thus far? A team disappointing? A team that's surprising to you? Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Also, don't forget, we're doing a jersey giveaway once we hit 3,000 subscribers. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. And until next time, I will see you all soon.